Hey everyone, I'm your host Piers Kicks, and welcome back to Metaverse Musings, which is a research-focused podcast that's part of Delphi Digital. We explore the integral components behind what many believe will be the internet's successor, a virtual extension of the natural world where most of us will eventually live, work, and play. To some, it represents our next great milestone as a network species, and to others, it is something to fear. With our guests, we discuss the technology, philosophy, and culture behind this brave new world. If you're not yet subscribed to the Delphi Research Portal, then I fear for your soul. You're missing out on the most incisive analysis that the digital asset space has to offer. Seriously, check it out. Nothing said on this podcast is a solicitation to buy or sell any security or token or to make any financial decisions. This podcast features sponsors, and any ads are not an endorsement by Delphi Digital and are for informational purposes only.
Hey guys, I wanted to tell you about our new sponsor, Crypto.com. Crypto.com's exchange is a rapidly growing trading venue with a strong retail flow. Top institutions can receive a credit line and highly competitive maker-taker fees. Their platform is robust, secure, and compliant. You can get started trading today on the Crypto.com exchange, and to get in touch with their institutional sales team, visit bit.ly/CryptoDelphi now or click the link in the show notes. Now back to our show.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Metaverse Musings. I'm incredibly excited to have Andrew Steinwald on the podcast today. You may know him from his newsletter and podcast called Zima. He's been super focused on the NFT space for the last year or so, and has been shedding a light on a lot of the interesting projects going on out there. So, Andrew, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, Piers, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate you inviting me to this podcast. I'm super excited to come on.
No, it's my pleasure. I've been a big fan of Zima since you got going. Listen to all of them religiously so far. So yeah, I think it would be good to start with a kind of a summary of your personal background, and then I guess kind of how you got into crypto and how you came across the idea of setting up Zima.
Yeah, so I first got involved in crypto, Bitcoin specifically, in 2013. I was in college at the time, and I forget where I learned about Bitcoin, somewhere obviously on the internet, some article. And I went to go right away. I was like, okay, everyone's talking about it going up, right? And I had no idea what it was. I didn't know about blockchain, nothing. So I just thought, okay, I can make money off of this weird digital currency. And so I signed up for Coinbase and I just started buying Bitcoin. And it went from $200. I was buying it at $200. I think it's November of 2013. And $200 went up to $1,000. And in like a month. And I thought, I am the most incredible investor. I'm amazing. I'm like God's gift to earth. And then it quickly popped and went right back down to, $200. I sold everything. I freaked out. And so it was a very, very quick, introduction to crypto and the bubble cycles and all of that. And I still didn't understand really what it was, but I was reading the forums because, obviously you're on the forums, you're chatting with people, you're trying to figure out what's going on. And everyone on the forums was saying, hey, Bitcoin is dead, but blockchain is like the real deal, the real thing that's going to survive. And I totally subscribed to that belief. I was like, okay, I don't know what just happened with Bitcoin, and I don't really know still what it is, but I'm starting to kind of understand the basics of blockchain and how it's going to, radically transform finance, radically transform value, information, coordination, et cetera. And so I became a big blockchain, not Bitcoin kind of guy. Mm-hmm. Anyways, I actually dropped out of college and I moved to the Middle East. And I started working for a Saudi hospitality conglomerate out there called the Faki Group, but that was mainly, I was basically doing management projects on, it was like restaurants, hotels, construction, stuff like that. Very, very weird, how I got there. But anyways, I was doing that and that was my day job. And I didn't enjoy it at all really. But so I was still figuring out how can I get involved in crypto and blockchain? Like what can I do to really kind of dive into the space and become like make something, because I thought it was a really, really cool and interesting technology. And it was going to be big. It is essentially what I had figured out from researching. And it wasn't until I think it was like, I want to say mid 2014 when I learned about Ripple. And I was living in Dubai at the time. And obviously being in Dubai, like it's like something like 90% of the population is from somewhere else, right? And so on salary day, which is once a month, you could see people lining up around the block everywhere, all over the streets to send money back home. So send money back to India, send money back to Nepal, Philippines, et cetera, like wherever. And these people they're totally getting completely shafted on the price that they're paying to send the money back home. It'll be like 5-10%. And so, being in love with Ripple at the time, which is funny to say now, but I was like, oh my God, this is the perfect use case for blockchain technology. Like I figured it out, like I was just so young and naive, and you'll see more about how naive I was. But I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to make a business utilizing Ripple, and it'll be a remittance business, and I'll set up kiosks that will, I'll set them up in like all these different restaurants and all these different locations, and people will input their dirhams, which is like the fiat currency of the UAE, input the dirhams, and then we'll on the back end we'll change it to like XRP, and then out we'll set up kiosks in the other countries, and then out we'll spit that fiat currency. So just like some crazy plan. Like I don't even know. I'm not technical. I have no idea if that would even work. But that was kind of my thesis. And so I was like, okay, I need to team up with a technical guy, a co-founder. And so I don't even remember how, but I was Googling and searching, and I found one blockchain developer that was living out in the Middle East at the time. He actually worked for Ripple. And I was like, this is a dream come true. This is perfect. And so I somehow got his number. I don't even know how. And I cold called him, and I was like, hey man, my name's Andrew. I want to talk to you, blah, 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 just like talking a mile a minute. And he was like, whoa, like, hold on. Like what's going on? It was a Russian guy named Sergey. And
Nice.
basically I was like, hey, you and we're going in business together. Let's meet up. I'm going to pitch you. And he was just like, okay, like, I'm in Abu Dhabi. And so I was like, oh, perfect. Abu Dhabi. It's only a 3-hour bus ride. Like, I'm there tomorrow. And so I remember telling my work, like, I was like, hey, I'm feeling really sick. I can't come in today. So I jumped on a bus, and I went to Abu Dhabi, and I met this guy at a hotel at lunch, and said hi and was so excited. And basically, I didn't even touch any of my food because I was talking like the entire time, like 2.5 hours or something. And he, at the end of it, he just like he didn't say like one word during it. So I was like, okay, like this guy loves it, like that was what I was thinking. And then he just goes, hey, like listen, like you're enthusiastic, I get it. But we are years and years away from any of this being anything, like you kind of need to sit back, relax, and kind of let it happen. And I was like stunned. I was like, how can this guy not see the vision? How does he not see like what we're onto, And I was always saying we as like me and him. I was like, what are you talking about? Anywho, and it just goes to show you like I was so naive. I'm still pretty naive, but back then I was like, did not know what was going on. Anyways, I go back, to Dubai, and I'm still doing my job, and I become pretty disheartened because I was like, damn, I can't do this by myself. I have no idea how to build this technology and whatnot. But I hadn't given up hope. I was like, I'm still going to finagle my way into the ecosystem. I don't know how, but I'll figure it out. So in around mid 2016, I moved back to the States, and I decided, okay, I'm going to do a startup in blockchain tech, and somehow use some crypto. I don't really know, but I'll figure it out. And so I was trying all these different ideas, and nothing was really working. And basically that was, what was that? That was I think it was around the end of 2016 was when things started to get pretty crazy, because I'd started researching and investing all these different projects. Because by then there was all these different, Ethereum obviously had come out, and all these different coins, and really the price started to get a little crazy towards the tail end of 2016. And so I was thinking, okay, wait, whoa, this is interesting. Instead of basically trying to build one project by myself, or with a team, because no one would team up with me, so that looked very unlikely, I could maybe deploy capital to the best teams and projects. And that was kind of an inkling of a thought. And then in mid 2017, that was like, okay, this is definitely going to happen, because the prices had just gone completely insane. I remember in like, what was it? I think it was April of 2017. I was like, this is insane. Like this is the biggest bubble I've ever seen in my life. And that was only the start of it. Right. And so I thought, okay, if I'm going to launch a fund in this ecosystem, I'm going to need to get someone who's way smarter than me and really knows about finance, because I know nothing. I'm zero background, and I just know a little bit about crypto. So I called up my good buddy who I've known since I was 6 years old. His name's Dan Patterson. He's my partner now at Polynexus Capital. And he was living in Hong Kong at the time, working in private equity. And I said, hey, Dan, like, you and I have known each other forever. I know about crypto. I know you like crypto. And I know you're transitioning in between jobs right now, because he was moving to a different firm. And I just basically said, hey, would you take a chance with me and kind of launch this? And luckily, thank God for him, but he agreed. And he moved back to Chicago, and we launched Polynexus in July of 2017. And that's just a traditional crypto asset hedge fund. It's funny to say that, because it's like traditional. And And what we decided to do is focus on trading liquid tokens versus any equity stage deals. And yeah, we've been operating that since 2017. It was our capital for the first year, and we launched with family and friends in November of 2018. And actually, as we're going through that journey of launching the fund and setting everything up and kind of raising capital and all that, making sustained alpha in the crypto markets is extremely, extremely difficult. Like unless you're jump trading or DRW, because we're in Chicago, so like we're competing with all these prop firms, all these prop shops, and these are all the guys that are at these shops are like our friends, and we talk to them, and they have teams of like 30 quants, right? And so we're like, how are we supposed to outcompete these guys? And it was, we're doing well, but we're not doing incredible. We're not doing like how these guys are doing, right? And so that was pretty. It was kind of a realization to us, and it was, we realized that we're not going to be, the DRW, we're not going to be the jump trading of crypto, which was, I guess that makes a lot of sense. Like we're just two guys, right? But I went to NFT NYC in February of 2019, and I saw, so I'm going there to check out the NFT scene because I had some basic interest, and I'd bought some crypto kitties back in the day, but I didn't really have the full vision and thesis around all that, that I do now. And I was walking the hallways, and I saw a guy sitting on the ground. He was, or maybe he was in a chair, I don't know, but he was on his iPad and he was just hanging out by himself. And I walk up to him and I go, "Hey, my name's Andrew. Nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah." And he, I'm actually friends with him now, but I sat with this guy for like 4.5 hours. Like I didn't even go to the conference. Like I didn't see a single speaker. I was just like enthralled by speaking to this guy. And he completely blew me away with kind of his thesis and thoughts on NFTs and how they relate to a metaverse, and a metaverse being a virtual environment that people live, work, and play in. And his ideas were that in order to have a real metaverse, like a real virtual environment that people are actually working in and living in, and truly having a part of their lives in, that you need to have property rights. You need to have ownership. You can't just be under the yoke of like Facebook or Epic Games or whatever. You have to really have ownership of the stuff, of the items and things that you do in there. And that completely clicked with me. And it's weird because it took me so long to really figure out what blockchain and Bitcoin is. And then that it was that conversation where I was like, this is going to be insane. Like this is going to be, and I want to make clear that I'm the ultimate crypto bull, right? Like I'm extremely bullish on Bitcoin and other crypto assets. And I think that crypto will radically transform, value, finance, and just kind of coordination, like all sorts of stuff like that. But when you look at NFTs, I see them as like the gateway to a metaverse, which means the alteration of society as a whole, right? So it's almost in my mind, it's a much larger market, which we'll get into that later. But I basically knew right away, okay, this is going to be absolutely massive and has the same ethos of crypto, because obviously it utilizes crypto, right? It utilizes blockchain. And so I was like, I need to double down in this space immediately. I need to go in head first. So, I started Zima Red, which is the content brand. Well, I guess I don't really know what you call it.
So you started with a newsletter then, and then evolved into the podcast over time.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just, I figured, okay, I want to learn about this, and the best way to learn usually is in public. And I'll just write down my thoughts of whatever I learn on a blog or a newsletter, publish it. And then it kind of evolved into a podcast, which has also been super, super just incredible. And because basically I can reach out to anyone. I mean, reach out to anyone and say, "Hey, I have this podcast. I'd love to learn from you." And you got to chat with them for an hour and learn for an hour. And it's just incredible. So anyways, that's my very, very long-winded way to kind of tell you about my background and how I got to where I am today.
Well, yeah, no, that was a brilliant summary. In fact, really, really cool story. Like how all the different topics have kind of intersected and weaved together there. And obviously glad that you eventually arrived upon the metaverse, which is obviously why we're all here. So yeah, I guess as someone who's now, been so immersed in the kind of forefront of the NFT space, interviewing all these projects, many of which, I've come across a bunch of projects through your coverage of them. What would you say are some of the most exciting things being worked on right now?
Oh, yeah, it's such a tough question to answer, because like right now we're just in an era. We're so early, by the way. Like we are extremely early within the NFT ecosystem and also the crypto ecosystem. But I think that the things that are what I'm seeing is that there's just tons of experimentation happening. There's people from all over the world doing different projects, working on different things, and it can be anywhere from like, there's stuff like Foundation and Zora, which are kind of redoing the I don't know what you kind of call them, but hype. Like,
yeah, they call it culture's stock exchange.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
yeah, being able to tokenize and incentivize and reward, additional interactions around that whole existing hype culture, as you say.
Exactly, like a totally new method to trade and buy and sell these items, these limited edition goods. And those can be physical goods like, cool new sneakers, or those can be digital goods like a cool NFT, right? And so that is insane. And that's just one little corner of this world that's happening. And then you can look at, crypto art, which is a whole nother universe. Like that's incredible because it's like all the best qualities of art on the internet. So you get the distribution of the internet right there. And then you get the security of the blockchain. And you get the added benefit of an incensurable financial system, 24/7 uptime, right? There's just, and I could keep going on and on. There's virtual worlds, there's collectibles, there's all sorts of different stuff, right? And so it's really, really hard for me to pinpoint one thing that I'm super, super excited about, because what's going on right now is just incredible all around. So
yeah,
I don't know, it's tough.
So you wouldn't want to place any kind of directional bet saying that you think maybe, let's say the virtual land, the virtual worlds aspect, or the gaming category more broadly, might win out over, let's say, the applications in the art space. You still think that, we're still just so early, can't really say yet?
Yeah, I would say personally, I love the kind of blockchain-based virtual world space. And I kind of see them as the pre-Napsters of the metaverse, because what you're doing is you've created a user-owned platform, and the platform is not just like a kind of a social media platform, or kind of a gaming platform, or e-commerce platform, or whatever. It's all those things combined. So you can go into this world, you can buy a piece of land, and instead of just on Facebook, you just kind of post pictures of yourself, right? But with this, you could post pictures of yourself if you want. You could make an e-commerce store. You could actually create NFTs and sell those NFTs in world and earn money from that. You can create, if you're good at coding, you can create a mini game. If you want to, if you're just creative, you want to make some cool build, some cool structure, you can do that. So with blockchain-based virtual worlds, you have the optionality to build whatever you'd like, plus the added benefit of user ownership. And I wrote a blog post about this kind of idea. I called it the scarce web, just because that sounds kind of sexy and I wanted more clicks. But
yeah,
basically, the idea that the web has been totally limitless, like essentially, right? You can make unlimited Facebook profiles, you could tweet unlimited times, you could copy and paste unlimited times, right? But now we're introducing this it's real artificial scarcity, if that makes any sense. There's 10,000 plots in this virtual world only, right? So like an analogy that I like to use, which is pretty bad, but I still use it, is if Facebook decided to say, hey, we're launching 1 million profiles that users can buy and sell to each other. And instead of just posting your pictures and videos on these profiles, you can build anything you want. So you can build a mini game, you can build an e-commerce store, you can build portfolio, like whatever you want, right? And that area on the internet, those 1 million profiles would be like the Manhattan of the internet. It'd be extremely hyper dense with just amazing content. And it would just be like tons of people want to go there and be there, and kind of, it's like the same reasons people move to Manhattan, right? Maybe not right now with COVID and everything, but before and soon to be, once this is all finished, I'm sure it'll bounce back. So I just see that concept is really interesting. Oh, well, so here's actually a better analogy. I would say it's like Reddit, except all the information you're seeing is your absolute favorite subreddits, and all the links that you're seeing are just like the most incredible and interesting links ever, right? So I guess that's a better analogy, but that's kind of how
No, I like the way you frame it. And as you say, there's always, when you have any sort of land or space that's being underutilized or not, it hasn't been, I guess, optimized. It's not as efficient as it could be. Someone else will come in and kind of drive them out and build something new and more efficient on top of it. It's another thing you wrote about, which was an idea that I loved. Kind of reminds me as well of, you remember the guy in the noughties who made that $1 million homepage where he sold pixels on that page. Yeah. And there was that, again, something crazy about that scarcity and driving eyeball time to a single place that just, we've already seen that play out in an example like that. It's really interesting.
Exactly. It's like humans are for some reason designed to like, or I don't know about but value scarcity. And that must be some like biological evolutionary thing from back in the day. If I have the most like berries, I'm the most likely to survive. So like acquire more things and don't, or if there's like, hey, I got these really rare seashells, that's really important. It might not be functional, but it's like high value. So people pay really close attention to scarcity and like the number of things in their like world.
Absolutely. What are some of the kind of unique or important considerations, when considering investing in these new technologies in the NFT space?
Oh man. So yeah, if you're investing in the NFT ecosystem, each different project is its own universe, and each one has their own value drivers and fundamentals, and kind of you basically need to analyze it like a completely different world, like ecosystem, right? So you could look at two blockchain-based virtual worlds or two, let's say Pokemon-like games, but when you're actually looking at what are the value drivers, what are the fundamentals of this project, they're completely separate, right? So even though you could both buy virtual pieces of land in both worlds, it's like you really need to do your research to figure out, okay, what areas, what what is a team like, how do they execute, what is the community like, how do they respond to new users or feedback or whatnot. So it's basically just you need to do a lot of research and a lot of diligence because this stuff is so new and there's so many. It's almost like it's not nearly as bad because there's actual products being built, but it's almost like 2017 ICO bubble where you just had people running out and building whatever, and a lot of it were scams. I would say that there's very few scams in the NFT space, but there are low quality projects, and I wouldn't want anyone to rush in and start purchasing something that's of very low quality and kind of lose their money that way. So basically just a lot of research before investing in, which is what you should do in any sort of investment. And then also I want to point out that it's incredibly risky because you're dealing with crypto asset risk. So you're dealing with like the Ethereum price, fluctuations, for example, and then you're dealing with the startup that actually issues the NFTs. They could go out of business, right? And in theory, your NFTs would be worthless. You're dealing with the actual chain. So if you have like a whole bunch of virtual land on Ethereum and suddenly there's a bug found in Ethereum, like that virtual land's pretty screwed. Regulatory risk, luckily, I think this market's too tiny for a lot of, regulators to really look at it seriously, but that'll probably come in the future once there's, more like larger amounts of capital being moved around. And also the assets are functional. So in order to build on your piece of land, you actually need access to that item. And so it's like there could be issues with the wallet and basically just very, very risky. So you need to research a lot and make sure you cover your bases.
What I know it's still early on, and I know that data remains, a problem, I suppose, in the NFT space. We have some really cool data companies such as Non-Fungible, though, making advancements on that front. But what are some of the key kind of metrics that you'd be looking at when entertaining investment in something?
Yeah, it would definitely be, it'd be the basic fundamentals like team, product, token economics, community, stuff like that. So non-fungibles is really the only kind of coin market cap type entity in the ecosystem, and they're amazing, right? They're pulling up all the sales data, they're showing Ethereum data, they're showing USD value data and transactions and whatnot. So what you really want to do is you just want to immerse yourself into a project for a period of time and kind of become a user and play with the game or world or whatever it might be. If it's a collectible and there's no kind of utility aspect to it, you want to be in the Discord, talk to the community, kind of see what's going on, talk to the founders. And what's great at this early stage is that you can really get to know the team and you can talk to them one-on-one. And everyone's like just so open and super friendly now, which I find really, really great. And it's unlike crypto really, because crypto is super tribal in my kind of experience. And I wonder if it's because most NFTs today, at least the ones I interact with, and I think in the market will say that it's also correct, but they're mostly on Ethereum. So I wonder if once we start getting, more NFTs on Ethereum and Tezos and EOS and whatnot, I wonder if it'll become more tribal. I guess we can see that, but
I can see that happening. Yeah. But no, that's exactly the observation I would make, that it all happens within Ethereum, within reason for the time being.
Yeah. But I want people to kind of keep focused and be aware that the end goal is the metaverse, right? So it doesn't, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what chain we're on or what technology we're using. What matters is that we have real property rights, real ownership in our digital lives. Like that's the ultimate goal. And I want to really like drive that home to a lot of people and to forget about the tribalism and focus on the end goal.
So, I mean, you mentioned that most of the stuff that you're engaging with, at least, is happening on Ethereum. Your usual actual investment instrument, I mean, are you more typically investing in actual NFTs themselves, or do you often invest in proxies for it, such as, an ERC20 that's game related, like decentralized Mana?
Yeah, so I just want to clarify just before diving deep. Polynexus is a separate entity that is just investing in cryptocurrencies, right? And trading cryptocurrencies. What we're talking about today is just all my personal investments and kind of thoughts around NFTs. There's nothing, nothing really more than that. Obviously, not financial advice. So
noted for the regulators listening.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say I am extremely excited about NFTs themselves, and I'm also really excited about we're seeing a lot of teams and projects launch their own native tokens, and whether that's just like a currency, for that world, or whether it's like a governance token or all these kind of. I think a lot of people were inspired by DeFi, seeing what's happening there, and they said, "Hey, these DeFi protocols are kind of." They're kind of just minting tokens for they're acquiring customers by minting these tokens and they're kind of just making them out of thin air, right? So eventually, like this fixed supply of whatever Aave token or whatever, it'll eventually run out, and the customer acquisition and the yield will come down. Like customer acquisition will drop, and it's kind of not sustainable. But these projects that have these ecosystems, these games with users that are actually playing the games and in these worlds, they say, hey, we can actually issue a token. Maybe it's a governance token, and going back to the ownership, we can give users the rights to kind of help guide us in our decisions of what new features to implement, and that is like super super exciting. And I think that governance tokens in virtual worlds are going to become possibly one of the most valued assets out there, because how many times have you played a video game where you're like, oh man, I wish they really implemented this feature. Like if they just implemented this, like it would be amazing. I wish they did this. So imagine if you could actually get some people together and vote on those features and actually get it passed, right? And the game developers actually follow through and implement that feature like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Change.
I think, I mean, obviously, so some games, even in their current form, like take RuneScape, for example, does have like an in-game polling style system, but I mean, not to the same degree that you were talking about, in which, there's sort of full, I mean, they basically have to follow through on whatever proposals get passed.
Right. Yeah. I think the added, I don't know if it's benefit, but the added, I guess benefit to the users is kind of the value attached to the token. So there's much more skin in the game for everyone involved if they have control over that token. So with RuneScape, there's probably, if they don't listen to the users will be mad, but it's kind of like whatever. But if you have this governance token and the game developers aren't listening to you, you could go and sell that and kind of it'll probably if they act bad, then the price will probably be reflected by
there's that extra layer of accountability through the actual token. Yeah,
exactly. And I just love the idea of having the added skin in the game for all participants, because kind of history has shown us that people with more skin in the game, they tend to act with they tend to act in better ways than people with no skin in the game.
Absolutely. I think, unlocking that kind of participatory component where, the players actually feel like stakeholders in the game in a financial and more direct sense than was previously possible is super exciting. What are some of the biggest challenges that you think that the NFT space currently faces?
Yeah, so the NFT space, as I mentioned before, is like right now we're in like the pre-Napster days, so we're super early. I actually analyzed the number of blockchain wallets that have interacted with OpenSea, which is the number one NFT exchange. And then I looked at blockchain.com Bitcoin wallets and looked at the growth of their wallets, because back in the day, blockchain.com was kind of like the premier Bitcoin wallet. And so in August of 2012, blockchain.com had roughly 20,000 Bitcoin wallets being used, right? And OpenSea in April of 2020 had roughly 20,000 unique wallets, interact with their platform. And right, so if you're comparing the two, then that shows that we're extremely early. Like we're in the 2012 of Bitcoin, right? So we have many years ahead of us. But the fact that there's this really great like growing ecosystem today is really promising. But so the challenges are, I would say, is just and this is a challenge for all of crypto, is just the usability. And because if you're dealing with DeFi and kind of doing weird trading stuff and weird staking stuff and all that, the people that are doing that are probably relatively technical. But with NFTs, it's mostly games, and so you want it to be super super easy. You want people to not have to worry about like, oh, do I have enough Ethereum in my wallet for this transaction? Like that'll totally ruin gameplay, right? So I'd say the biggest challenge today, really, for the NFT space, is just that getting over that crypto barrier. That kind of the MetaMask transaction, or even like Magic Wallet or Matic with their Magic Wallet, they're doing a great job by kind of obfuscating that. But still, we have a lot way, much farther to go in order to get just a seamless user experience where people can log in and start playing, not deal with the blockchain.
Yeah, absolutely. I think exactly being able to abstract away that kind of blockchain backend is the name of the game. Pun not intended. But yeah, what other projects have you taken a look at that are making headway in that regard?
I think people are well. So what I've seen personally is that, and these aren't NFTs specifically, but Cent, which is they build themselves as a universal creative income platform. And what they're basically doing is they're using crypto economic incentives to kind of allow people to monetize their blog posts, which I think is really, really cool. So if you write a good blog post, you can kind of tip people right away in crypto, and you can get paid for it, right? And then you can also like seed different users. So if I'm like, oh, Piers, he's an awesome writer, he's going to put out some fire content, I'm going to seed him with $20, then I get some sort of a percentage of the funds that you earn, which is really cool. So
that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't, don't quote me on that. I don't know the specifics of, the intricacies of how that works exactly, but I know that they're kind of flipping the idea of content creation on its head by directly paying the users or the creators of content, which is really cool.
And yeah, I really like that. Anything that can, help you monetize those sort of curation abilities and anticipating stuff that's going to blow up before it does. It's a really cool corner of things being toyed with. Do you know Ascent running on their own chain or how are they set up?
I think that I want to say that they're on layer 2, but I'm not sure. I think they might be on layer 2 because they're using Matic, I believe. But everything I'm saying could be incorrect, so do not quote me.
Okay, noted. I've seen a lot of people writing and kind of suggesting that the total addressable market for NFTs is on the order of trillions of dollars. What do you perceive, I guess, to be the logical endpoint of all of this experimentation?
Yeah, so I agree with that, and I know it sounds totally absurd, but if you look at, again, I'm a huge crypto bull. Like I'm obsessed with crypto. I live and breathe crypto, right? It's every day. But I do think that Bitcoin will become most likely the reserve currency of the world, right? So I'm extremely bullish to say the least. But I do think NFTs will be bigger than crypto, if that makes sense, because crypto is basically it's like the money that we use to buy stuff, and then NFTs are all the other stuff in the world. And getting to the point where it's worth trillions and worth greater than crypto means that the metaverse is kind of here, and that people are they wake up, they put on their, I don't know if they put on their headset and their suit, or if they put on, haptic suit, not like actual business suit, or if they kind of plug in, the back of their head or whatever, plug into the Matrix style, plug into the metaverse and kind of how that looks. But I'm talking about a future where most people, the majority of people on Earth, are living and working inside virtual environments. So it's going to be, I can't tell you what it's going to look like, but I do think that the items and assets in those worlds will all be ownable and will all be like individual items, just like how we in our regular world. And yeah, if everything in that world is has some sort of value to it, then you can only you just kind of extrapolate and think, okay, well, it's going to be bigger than crypto by that kind of measure.
So yeah, when NFTs, I guess, become the dominant, actual mechanism through which natively digital goods are tracked, then everything could be stored in it.
I don't think it's going to be. It's going to, obviously this is going to take 50 to 100 years, right, for the metaverse to actually come to fruition. But I just can't see a situation where we're living a true metaverse is formed in a Facebook world, and you actually don't own the items. The items are actually owned by Facebook, right? So I just that's kind of my thesis, is that the NFTs enable a true metaverse to form. Therefore, NFTs will be bigger than crypto because it's a metaverse.
Mm. You recently wrote about the idea of this golden age occurring around the metaverse. Could you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah. So I was listening to a podcast with Naval and I should know this, someone else, but Naval is like, the god of Silicon Valley, right? And he brought up the idea that the next what is it, Renaissance, maybe next golden age? I forget his exact terminology, but next golden age is going to be in the cloud. And that got me thinking that, wow, okay, that's not going to happen. That's happening right now. It's happening right now in crypto, because the people that I interact with on a daily basis, they are in Japan, they're in Argentina, they're in China, they're in Europe, like they're everywhere, right? And so what really starts with how a golden age forms is that you basically get a location in the world, like a city, and the rulers in that city, or like the rulers of the country or whatever, they basically are really open to people coming in and all working together and collaborating, and they encourage innovation. Like they're not trying to tax everyone and extract all this value. They're kind of like, hey, go do your thing, make cool stuff, like cool, like go at it, right? And what we saw was that Silicon Valley was that place, for I think since like the late 90s or early 90s, I'd say. And you had all these people from all over the world, all over America, wherever, coming to build interesting companies and build interesting technologies. And they were talking to each other. They would leave one company, go to another company. So it's sharing of knowledge and kind of the I guess the vibe of Silicon Valley was very, it wasn't very conformist. Everyone was kind of doing their own thing, and it was kind of hippie and kind of weird, right? And you need that kind of environment in order to really create interesting, cool stuff. And what we're seeing now is that every golden age ends, just like every superpower. They kind of become dominant, and they become less dominant over time, and then someone else will rise. So we're kind of seeing the Silicon Valley golden age end, and people are, we have companies moving out, we have people moving out, and I think COVID definitely accelerated this trend, but I think it was happening regardless. And when Naval said the next golden age will be in the cloud, I was like, okay, crypto, we already have an environment where people, they don't really, they listen to regulators, but there's other people that don't really. So you kind of have that rebel spirit, kind of, I wouldn't say hippie at all, but I would say these people that don't listen to rules, which is actually conducive for experimentation and conducive for innovation. And then you have people collaborating all over the world and sharing ideas, and especially with the open source nature of this stuff, it's like, someone could take something from DeFi and apply it to NFTs, and NFTs to like Tezos chain, like all these different crazy ideas coming around. And I thought, wow, okay, this is actually something that's today. It's happening right now, and I happen to be in it. So I was like, this is just insane. This is so cool. And so I want to write about it. And it's a lot of my blogs are very like hypey, which is I think it's fine. But
I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic. It's funny. Anyways, but so I thought, I was just like, I need to write about this and let other people know, and kind of encourage other people to keep experimenting. Don't really listen to rules, and keep doing their thing. Which I know it's funny for me to say, but that's kind of how I feel.
Absolutely. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, on the one side, in terms of working towards this idea of a metaverse, we've got the decentralized camp there, which you just described. We often also hear about the idea of a sort of federated model being more likely to emerge for the early metaverse. If a large group of tech giants agreed to allow, a material degree of interoperability, do you think this would undermine your notion of a metaverse?
Yeah, it's funny because I think that the first iteration of what will look the most like a metaverse, I think we're seeing it now in blockchain-based virtual worlds on a very small scale, but it's actually live today, and with a couple hundred users. But I think that the first large-scale version of what we consider a metaverse, where a virtual environment where people are living, working, existing, etc., that'll probably happen in within a centralized company, right? Which is unfortunate, and I don't want to be like that. But if you just look at if you're comparing the resources of Facebook or Epic Games to the resources of like Decentraland, it's a little bit lopsided, right? And they can really push that forward. And so I think that first it'll be centralized. Epic Games, as you've spoke about before on your podcast, which everyone should go listen to all your podcasts if they haven't. Tim Sweeney, he speaks about who's the CEO of Epic Games, which owns Fortnite. He was the one who was talking about a federated kind of database model where you have a group of people, a group of companies, kind of all kind of having a stake within this network, so it's not completely centralized, which is great. I think that is definitely in the right direction. I'm really, really happy that he's thinking about that, because he's extremely forward thinking when it comes to the metaverse and kind of the future of that platform, because he's so close to building it. But I think that it's going to be gradual. It's going to be centralized, federated, and then over time we'll get to the decentralized. And I think that it'll take a long time, like a very, very long time, for us to get to the decentralized version from a technical standpoint and from just a mental mindset standpoint. Like people don't really care about privacy. People don't really care about digital rights and whatnot. They only care when something bad happens, right? So it's like I don't think a lot of people didn't really mind playing Hearthstone, which is the online trading card game online. And then that one streamer who won the tournament in Hearthstone, he yelled "Free Hong Kong" and he got his assets banned. All of his assets, taken away from him. Right. So it's like people didn't really know there was an option, but then you had Gods Unchained, which is a blockchain based trading card game where they're unable to seize the assets from you. And so then they had a lot of users move from Hearthstone to Gods Unchained. So things won't the decentralized platforms will not get adoption until there's events like that.
Some trigger events along the way.
Exactly, but those things will happen over time. It's going to take just a very, very long time, much longer than I would like. But that's just how it is.
Hey ho! At least it's being built. At least we're getting to watch it happen. All of these, as I say, all of this experimentation, all of these projects that exist right now, even if they're not, ultimately the winners, and even if they're not around in 10 years, I mean, obviously they're going to inform the design decisions and whatnot for big studios downstream once big companies get involved.
And also just having the option, right? So like before, there was no option for Hearthstone players to go to a platform where you couldn't get your assets seized from you, right? They just didn't exist. But now we have that option. Like that is a massive change in how we operate it, because now we can have user rights. Now we can have real property. Now we can have have faith in our virtual environment, and we can dedicate more time, money, and effort into our virtual lives because we feel confident, right? So it's great that we have that option.
To what extent do you think then that this truly decentralized version of the metaverse will be able to kind of self-regulate? One of the common criticisms that we get, and I also think Tim Sweeney's actually touched upon it, is that we can't just have anonymity and free access to everything for everyone, because people will inevitably behave poorly and even maliciously in certain contexts. So do you have any idea about how that aspect of things might be solved?
Yeah, this is a really, really great question. I haven't dived deeply into the governance of different metaverses and different virtual worlds and whatnot. And it's something I should really look into more, but it's going to be really messy for sure. Like it's going to be, there's going to be a lot of mess ups. There's going to be a lot of really nasty communities in different virtual worlds and stuff like that. It's going to take a lot of, fails and it's going to take a lot of work. Right. But that shouldn't deter us from all the good that's going to come out of this, because I think that the goodness, if you will, is going to vastly outweigh all the negative stuff that's happening. So in terms of the governance, I don't, it's going to be really difficult, because if you get like, I don't know, a Nazi virtual world where everyone's a Nazi, right? Like that's really difficult, because if they all hold governance tokens, right, they're going to vote for Nazi stuff, right? So it's a very, it's a hard problem to solve. I don't know exactly what we're going to do, but it's just like, it's something that will be solved, and we'll figure it out. It's not like there's never been a problem that people have come across, I guess, besides like physics, but that people are like, like we cannot solve this on a technical level. Like it's just impossible, right?
Absolutely.
We will figure it out, but
so it won't be a true, impediment to it. I think, I think you make a great point. It's also like Matthew Ball touches upon, he says, even in the context of the internet, it's still many years later, still undergoing its own self-discovery, Exactly. Obviously we've just recently had, the election meddling with Cambridge Analytica and whatnot, and we're starting to recognize, the pros and the cons, the good and the bad. And there's no reason that a similar rhythm won't also apply to the metaverse, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And this also, I have a question for you, if you don't mind switching it really quick. I want to ask you, what are the what do you think are the negative and positive ramifications that will come from people living and existing inside of a virtual environment?
Yeah. So I've actually got a bit of a bleak outlook on it in the nearer term, because I just think seeing these crazy, awesome, powerful experiences getting better and better, coinciding with a radical cost reduction in the hardware required to access them, namely VR, the affordability of some of these standalone headsets is coming down so dramatically. Alongside other, secular trends, for example, like UBI coming to the fore through Andrew Yang in the States, like the affordability, the universal affordability of this stuff, I think is going to reach such a crazy point in the not too distant future. And I don't know, I do worry about people's ability to not succumb to that escapist aspect of things. I know firsthand, having grown up, been completely hooked on all kinds of tech because I love this stuff, how tricky it can be and how long it can take to be able to self-regulate. But then on the flip side, like Letelier have touched upon, they did it really well in that opening piece of the virtual economy report, the social mobility point of view, the idea that this truly is, in its rawest form, a level playing field for the first time ever. Economically, I mean, there aren't, physical attributes aren't even a consideration here. I think from that point of view, it's super exciting, but, yeah, I think, I think there'll be brilliance, and I also think there'll be tragedy at the other end of it, unfortunately, but similar again to what we observe, already with the internet.
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of your points. But if you think about, if you have, a ton of people living inside these virtual environments, and like if that just becomes the status quo, and in theory, once we're at that point where it's that good that people want to spend most of their time in there, then you have to think that we're going to have some sort of mechanisms to keep our bodies healthy, to kind of defeat loneliness that is generally associated with spending a lot of time online. And like, because if our brains are tricked into thinking that if you and I are talking in a virtual world and our brains actually think that I'm sitting right in front of you and we're chatting and we're fulfilling that social need to connect with other people, then that's
Sure.
totally fine. Like, it doesn't matter if it's
Yeah,
in a virtual environment or not.
I should clarify when I speak about succumbing to that escapist element, I don't mean just perceiving spending all your time in there as a bad thing. I actually I'm completely neutral on that side of things. I think that's just a logical inevitability that people spend the majority of their time, and dominant interaction models will gravitate towards telepresence through VR and stuff like that. On the escapism point, I just mean that people are in these worlds, but they're interacting with stuff that's just let's say, dopamine driven sort of feedback loop stuff that just gets you hooked, stuff that isn't actually useful for you or anyone. That's what I mean on the escapist side of things. That's what I worry about. But I have no doubt that everyone will spend all their time in this metaverse, period.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I could see some sort of arms race between, people that are going after your, endorphins, and, the advertisers trying to get more clicks and looks and views on their stuff, versus people that are trying to combat that with kind of, other products that say, hey, use our product for ad blocking and the best metaverse experience or whatever. So it's always going to be an arms race. And I hope that there's more people trying to combat this stuff and trying to create a healthy, metaverse ecosystem.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so exciting and so interesting to be a part of, because again, a lot of the decisions being made that help inform the kind of business models that are going to emerge are, ridiculously important. You look at the invention or the emergence of the internet, I suppose, like there were some pretty key, security and design decisions that were made by a surprisingly small group of people, which, we're seeing decades later continue to kind of reverberate throughout the digital world. Like, those same, decisions that are that important are being made right now and have to be made over the next 10, 20 years about this place, about the metaverse, that equally is impactful. So yeah, super interesting time to be around it all.
I agree completely.
Hey guys, I wanted to tell you about our new sponsor, Crypto.com. Crypto.com's exchange is a rapidly growing trading venue with a strong retail flow. Top institutions can receive a credit line and highly competitive maker-taker fees. Their platform is robust, secure, and compliant. You can get started trading today on the Crypto.com exchange, and to get in touch with their institutional sales team, visit bit.ly/CryptoDelphi now or click the link in the show notes. Now back to our show.
What is something unique or non-obvious about the metaverse that you kind of hold as an opinion, but you think that people will probably generally disagree with?
So I don't know if this might be completely obvious to a lot of people, but I guess I think that unfortunately most people won't care that about a decentralized metaverse. And we touched upon this before, but if you just look at like most people don't care about privacy and Facebook and TikTok and whatnot. I think that one of my worst fears is that if we're all inside this metaverse that is owned and operated by some big corporation, that's like totally defeats the purpose of what actually a metaverse is. And then you're kind of on like a platform, not really a metaverse. So I guess I don't know if that's super obvious that people don't really care, but I'm hoping that somehow we can, because I don't think education is really the way to go. Because if you can tell people, hey, like Facebook is bad for you, spend more time outside, and people are like, whatever, like I love Facebook or whatnot. And so I think we have to build like some sort of system or some sort of incentive to get people to want to go to the decentralized version. And I don't know what that'll look like. I don't know how it's going to work. It can't really be a monetary incentive because that's never sustainable. It has to be some sort of, I don't know, like social or some, it has to just be a great experience and be better than what the centralized version can offer. So people say, hey, you know what? I want to go in this world and live in this world and live in the true metaverse versus like this Facebook one. So I keep picking on Facebook, but it could be any sort of company. So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. What's one thing that's become clear to you since you started formally researching all of this, metaverse and NFT space, that you wish you maybe known before or that you found particularly interesting?
Yeah, this is also really, your questions are just amazing. I need to, yeah. So I guess the more I learn about everything in the ecosystem, the more I realize how little I know. Like every day I'm like, oh my God, like this thing exists. Like, what is this thing? It's like, I was just talking to Carlos from Forefront, who's really deep into these social currencies. He actually created something called the Swag Network, right? And he was telling me all about social currencies, and kind of completely blew my mind on what he's doing in that area and how that space is evolving. And then you have like the Foundation and Zora guys who are creating this new, method for selling limited edition goods, and then you have virtual worlds, and you have crypto art, and you have collectibles. Like there's just so much to learn and understand, and it's crazy how little I know and how much I thought I knew going into it. Like, okay, I'm pretty versed in crypto. I kind of understand like, what's going on, and now I'm like, okay, I know nothing. Like this is insane.
Yeah, it reminds me of that Pascal quote, which I always thought applies really well to what's going on in this decentralized metaverse space. That knowledge is like a sphere. The greater its volume, the larger its contact with the unknown.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. And I always thought it was super relevant to this. It's like, a nice visual of something actually spherical with volume that's expanding at such a crazy rate. And we're just in one little part of the surface of.
Yeah, I'm going to change it to my Twitter bio. I'm taking that.
There you go. Okay, moving on towards some of the sort of closing questions now. What do you see as the primary path to adoption for NFTs and ultimately this idea of a metaverse?
Yeah, I think that the best way to get people onboarded into the ecosystem and get people using NFTs and really kind of appreciating what they can do, like the real property rights and whatnot, is just to create good games and good experiences. So, like, if like I'll use Axie for example. Axie Infinity is the game where you have these kind of Pokemon-like creatures and you can battle them, and they all have these stats. And then, they implemented or they created a land, like a universe for them, and you can use your Axies within that land and acquire resources. And so it's like, if you can go in there and learn how to play the game and just have fun with it, then that's like the biggest thing. It really comes down to people just having good experiences, having fun and enjoying it. And that's on the gaming side. And that's like a pretty basic game from what is out there today. But in the future, I would love to see like a World of Warcraft, utilizing NFTs. That would be an incredible experience, right? And people would be completely obsessed with that. If you could play World of Warcraft and earn money, like done, right? And then from the other standpoint, because I see like fun in gaming on one side, and I see kind of like the virtual world side, I see more of like connection and it's like almost like human connection and social interaction. I think that if you're living in rural, I don't know, India or wherever, and you don't really interact with too many people, but you can go to this virtual world and interact with people from all over and kind of really connect with people on a social level and make friends. Because I've actually made friends from this ecosystem, which is totally insane. I never thought I would do that, but I think that it's really great that you can go to a community, go to an area and feel like you know people and feel like you can chat about stuff and just have a good time and connect on a social level. So there's different ways to get people involved. And I think that it really just comes down to like the really human element, like fun, enjoyable,
I like that.
social stuff like
it's
that.
A great point. The actual social fabric of it. Yeah, it's super infectious. And as you say, at least for the time being, there's very little tribalism or whatever exhibited in this actual, this particular corner, of the market.
I what I love about NFTs, among so many things, is that they're very human. You can scratch your itch to create stuff. Your social itch. You can have fun playing the game. So it's all very like human related stuff versus crypto, which is it's very financially driven and kind of winner takes all in some sense. It's kind of us versus the other guy, the order book or whatever. So it's kind of a different
absolutely. I think that's in part because lying at the heart of part of its value proposition is that these things are used for like social signaling almost. They're behave similar to how physical collectibles do. And so right at the heart of the value proposition of NFTs is by definition that social component, which is really cool.
100%. Like there's never, as far as I know, there are not many collectors in the world history that will be really big into collecting art or like cars or like baseball cards or whatever, and they want to keep that collection to themselves. Like they definitely want to connect with other collectors and other people that appreciate that collection.
Yeah.
And so that's inherently a social activity. And then also the fact that you're dealing with, even when you're trading these assets, you're dealing with people and not an order book. So it's like right there, you can say, hey, I really love your piece of land or whatever. I'd love to offer you, this price. And you say, oh no, I'm going to give you this price. And then maybe when you eventually buy it and you build something, the previous owner will say, hey, I love what you did with the place. Right. So it's a very, very social aspect to this, all this stuff.
I like it. I like it a lot. And then I guess an extension of that, what kind of, what new business models do you see on the horizon that you think will eventually dominate?
Yeah. So business models is interesting because, we're in crypto. So there's like all these different ways that you can, use a token to do X, Y, Z and all this stuff. Right now, what we're seeing is companies are the startups that are creating some sort of game and they're issuing an NFT and then users will buy the NFT. So pretty basic. But I think that'll maintain to be, a pretty dominant business model. But I'm really excited about people utilizing kind of these DeFi primitives and these kind of DeFi inspiration to implement their own token models and their own business models. So like governance tokens, which we touched upon, I think that's super interesting. It's not really a sustainable business model because in theory, like you don't have an unlimited amount of governance tokens, right? You probably have a fixed supply. But then there's also like revenue share tokens where this is especially great for virtual worlds. If there's, you can release some sort of revenue share token, and this is like probably security, but anyways, and in the virtual world, if there's commerce happening, like people are buying and selling NFTs natively within that world. Like there's a No Shot, which is a CryptoVoxel community member, and he also a co-founder of Async Art. He has a shoe store inside CryptoVoxels, and the shoes are NFTs. So he can sell the NFTs directly in the world, and people can try them on and stuff, and it's really cool. So it'd be really cool if all in world economy, if the revenue share token holders were issued like 50% of the revenue from that, and then the other 50% went to the game developers, right? So it's kind of really aligning the users and developers together. And yeah, there's just like we could do all sorts of weird staking stuff where they release their own token and you have to stake maybe on these servers to keep the virtual world alive or the game alive, or maybe there's resources that pop up. Like there's just so many different ways that we can monetize. And I was speaking to one founder the other day who started a company, and he said, because at first when he was pitching he's pitching game companies, not crypto companies, and he was saying, hey, I know you're a game company. I know you guys want to use blockchain because it's so great, right? And all these game companies were like, no, we don't want to use blockchain. But then he switched his pitch to, hey, you're a game company. I know you're always trying to figure out new ways to monetize. Hey, I got a whole basket of different methods you guys can monetize with. So, let's chat. And then so he said, right when he switched that pitch, he got like way more inbounds and actually onboarded a lot more customers by utilizing that kind of framework. So it's really, if you think about it, like crypto enables so many different ways to monetize that we're just scratching the surface today.
Yeah, quite right. It's an entirely new tool set, which, yeah, as you say, haven't even fully explored yet. Yeah, I think the value add there, even from the early business models that we've already uncovered, like it's once it's communicated effectively, it resonates so much, even with existing game studios. But like I've spoken about before as well, it's just that hesitance to surrender parts of sort of economic control over to the user base. It's super counterintuitive for developers. I understand why it's scary at first, but
Completely.
yeah, we got a growing arsenal of cases in point of it working tremendously. So let's hope we build on it. Then moving on from that, in terms of, we kind of touched upon it earlier, but in terms of investable surface area, what do you find the most compelling and why?
Yeah, I think, personally, I love blockchain-based virtual worlds. I think that they're really, really exciting. And the optionality that users have on what they want to do with their piece of land is really exciting. I think if you want to really supercharge NFT growth as a whole, you should basically enable somehow, I have no idea how you do this technically, but enable all sorts of NFT games to be played and used inside these virtual worlds. Like if you could go into Decentraland or go into CryptoVoxels or Somnium Space or Sandbox or whatever and play with your gods and chain cards and like walk up to someone and start, gaming, or you could battle your
Mm-hmm.
axes in these worlds or kind of do that stuff. That would totally make the space explode, and I think a lot of the value would accrue to blockchain-based virtual worlds. That's kind of a far-off vision, but I could see that happening.
Mm.
But I'm also really excited about social currencies after speaking to Carlos, and then also, and I guess this is about curiosity, not necessarily like I think the most value will be driven to social tokens or whatnot.
Mm.
But also, what Zora and Foundation are doing with their new models of selling limited edition goods, that's super exciting. So yeah, I'd say at this stage, keep it, do a ton of research, keep it broad. And then when you find something that you love and you think is really great, then double down on that and really concentrate your positions within those assets, basically. But again,
Mm.
that's just personal opinion.
Is there a particular game or project that springs to mind off the back of that for you? Have you got a soft spot for one in particular?
Yeah, my entryway in a more significant manner, I guess, into the ecosystem was definitely CryptoVoxels. It's
Mm-hmm.
basically a Minecraft on the blockchain, and everything is really simple and blocky. And but what I really love is the community, the optionality. But you can build anything you want, and then also the founder. It's a one man show over there, and he's incredible, Ben Nolan.
Yeah,
So yeah, yeah.
he's awesome. I think for me the particularly attractive thing about crypto voxels was just the really organic nature with which it kind of came to be. How he managed to bootstrap and just finance by selling off parcels of land over time. There was never a formal external raise or whatever, and now it has one of the most invested and sort of loyal communities. It's really cool.
Exactly. And one thing that I always love to point out is that at first CryptoVoxels, there's very, very few users and things were selling for a very low price, because what Ben Nolan did is he sold land roughly every week or so or every few months or whatever. And he populated the world as he did that. And then he would raise
Mm-hmm.
the market price of the land he's selling at whatever the market price was. And it was really cool to see, because I remember like kind of being there for that. When I entered the world, there weren't too many crypto artists. And what happened was you had a ton of crypto artists. I think it's because it's so easy to build in that world, but a ton of crypto artists came in. They started buying up lands. You had a ton of collectors buying up land. They're called parcels in crypto voxels, but buying up parcels, and they would build their own galleries. So it was really funny to see that you're having gentrification in a virtual world by artists, just like in Chicago, which is where I
Yeah.
live. All like the hot neighborhoods now, basically they weren't hot 10 years ago. You had all these artists move in, they open up galleries, they started doing murals and like beautifying it, right, make it
Hmm.
beautiful. And then you have the coffee shops and then the bankers, and like then it becomes more of a mainstream thing, right? So it was really funny to see how that play out, because I never would have thought that in virtual world kind of behavior would kind of mimic the physical world. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, well, let's see if the coffee shops and the bankers come now. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I guess we know what your favorite crypto game is. Then, what is your favorite video game ever outside of
Ooh,
crypto?
yeah, this is really good. I would say this is weird, but Age of Empires 2 probably,
Okay,
or Shogun Total War, and it would be
okay,
campaign mode strictly. So I would say um,
nice. You clearly had
those
some good
games.
fun with that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I love the strategy aspect of it, collecting resources for Age of Empires and real time
Mm,
strategy. With the Shogun Total War campaign mode, it was turn based, so you're kind of building, collecting resources, building. There's intrigue, you're sending spies and whatnot. So I really like that aspect. I think that
mm.
was really really exciting. And I played like so many hours of that game. So
I was always a sucker for Age of Mythology over Age of Empires.
interesting.
I love all the myths. I think they're
Wow,
so cool. And
that's really.
yeah, they
I
actually
played
had
Age of Mythology, but I wasn't as into it.
oh well. Maybe we'll find a blockchain based collab game at some point. We'll
Soon,
see.
it's coming
Yeah.
out. I bet you.
Okay, what is the most profound or impactful digital experience you've ever had?
That's also a really good one. So I would say, yeah. So this is gonna be super vanilla, but I would just say putting on a VR headset for the first time, um,
Mm,
which is like that's not super sexy or exciting, but I remember putting it on, and I could only be in there for like 10 minutes because I actually got really sick.
oh
But
no.
it's like you knew when you use the technology and people around you are like, whoa, like the people using it are like, whoa, it's crazy. Like how many times in your life does that happen? Like not super often, right?
Yeah.
But
Surprisingly.
yeah, but like
Yeah.
when I put on that headset, I was like, whoa, this is insane. Like this is going to be, right now it's not, there's still a lot of work to be done, right? I did feel a little bit, woozy after 10 minutes or so, and I had to take it off and whatever, but still like, I love the experience, and I forget exactly what it was, but I remember being like, my brain thinks that I'm here and I think I'm here, right? Like I don't know what like is going on in this world or whatever,
You were
but
probably just browsing the menus.
no, totally. Like, yeah, I was probably in like when you first sign on to like what is it, the Oculus, you're kind of in that house or whatever.
Oh
And
yeah, that intro session is crazy.
right, yeah, even that experience, you're like, this is crazy, right? And I just love that feeling of utilizing some sort of technology and being like, whoa, like this is insane, right? Because that's so rare. But when that does happen, that okay, like that's whatever that might be, it's going to be big.
Mm. No, that's a great one, actually. No, I'm super excited to see where all of the VR stuff gets to. Obviously got for those that don't know, the new Oculus Quest coming out later this year. Not sure whether it's going to be called the Quest 2 or something else. But then cool stuff around the corner with like Apple's AR glasses and whatnot. It's all happening.
So excited.
Finally, then, out of all the books you've ever read, which one has resonated with you the most?
Yeah, I would say The Power of Habit. I think it's by like
Mm-hmm.
Charles something. I forget his name, but The Power of Habit. I read it when I was in high school, and yeah, it just talks about how that the habits that you form and what you do on essentially a daily basis. That really makes up like your total life, right? Like which is
Mm-hmm.
weird to think because we have a limited number of days, and so brushing your teeth and like the simple things that you do every day that adds up over your lifetime, and that just encapsulates what your entire life is. So if
Mm-hmm.
you build like these good core habits from the get go. Because back when I was in high school, I was just like a total like I didn't study, didn't care, like was just totally totally crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that really, I remember reading that and having it had such a big impact on my life, and to this day, I keep like a spreadsheet of things that I do on a daily basis to kind of build habits, which is really really weird. I'm not saying anyone should do that, but like it's really helped me just like organize my thoughts and just my life, which is really interesting. So yeah, I would say power of
That's
habit.
That's really good. That's really cool. I read a really interesting Reddit thread the other day, actually, where someone basically mentioned how they got in the habit of writing every day, just 200 to 600 words. Do it in a Google Doc. You have a daily doc, a monthly doc, and a yearly doc. And once the daily's full, you move it to the monthly, and then once you've done all 12 months, you move it to the yearly. And this guy had been keeping it for like 7 years, and said, basically just said that even like the smallest triggers of like how you were feeling back then enables your brain to fill in the blanks to such a crazy degree. He's really like swore by it and recommended it for everyone. So that's something I'm trying to get into.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. I'm so envious of that person because I write blogs. I try to do them twice a week, but they take like weeks for me to do. And I'll right now I have like 50 Google Docs opened on my screen, and trying to go
Yeah.
through them, and it's really tough. But yeah, no, it's a habit I need to build. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. Yeah, anyway, so if people want to follow more of your stuff, where can they find you then? Where's the best place?
Yeah, I would say Twitter. I'm super active. It's Andrew Steinwald is my handle, and I am working on something within the ecosystem, and I would love to reach out, or I'd love people to reach out to me if they ever want to learn more about NFTs and the kind of the metaverse and kind of what I'm doing, or if you just want to chat in general about the ecosystem as a whole. I would love to do that. So please reach out, DM me. DMs are open, so happy to chat.
Awesome. And yeah, no, we'll have to have you back on in a few months. See how things have evolved.
Well, you're gonna have to come back on my podcast in the next couple of weeks. Yeah.
That's happening. That's happening.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. That'll be fun.
Likewise. Well, yeah, thank you very much, Andrew. I appreciate your time. Really enjoyed chatting. And yeah, look forward to our follow-up one.
Yeah, Piers, thank you so much for bringing me on. I'm really, really happy to chat with you, and I can't wait for you to come on Zima Red.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed it, please support the show by hitting subscribe on iTunes, writing a review, or sharing this episode on Twitter and LinkedIn. And stay tuned for our next episode, out soon.